Welcome back to the Change Physician Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Cady, joined by my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and we are going to talk about a special episode of real life fitness. We are wanting to kind of tap into a few things or elements of overall wellness, and of course, nutrition is going to be one of them, and some other important aspects of wellness, but we have to tap into real life fitness. So thanks for joining me on this chat, Kevin.
Well, thanks for joining me on this chat, Melissa.
Sometimes I can't make our interviews, so I've got to be appreciative of the time I have to join you. But
but that's rare, and we always miss you.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I decided to wear just keep my active fitness clothing on so that it goes along with the theme. So I figured you want to give your take on kind of some general fitness perspectives from all these years of being on this earth and learning from others. I know a lot.
And we learned so much of this in medical school, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Or do you want me to go?
I can start off. I guess it will just kind of set the theme is as we're recording this is January of 2021, and this whole month is sort of about like a reset, right? So everybody, we make these arbitrary dates, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, is somehow there's this reset thing. And so for the last several episodes, we've done things focusing on nutrition. We had some fantastic guests with Dr. Michael Grieger, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. We have some other guests actually right before this episode. When this one gets published, we'll have the Chef Talk, Colin Zhu and stuff. And we also had some of our own inputs on there when it comes to nutrition. And we talked about how do you simplify that process? And I think we need to do the same thing for fitness, right? It's like these basic things we overcomplicate, right? And because we start overcomplicating things, and then we start, well, what is the perfect way? What's the perfect way? And one of the best things I ever learned in anesthesia was perfect is the enemy of good. Did you have a tenant who said that?
I've heard that in some sphere, but I'm not sure.
I will never forget. It was an A line, and I was fiddling with an A line, and my attending was just like, so an arterial line, for those guys who don't know, we're monitoring blood pressure, and he goes, and he's like, is it working? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, then stop. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, perfect is the enemy of good. Right? It was working fine. There was nothing to worry about. And if you keep trying to make it more crazy, you can screw it up. And in the case of fitness, if you're trying to find the perfect exercise, then you end up not doing any sort of exercise. So, from my standpoint, what is the most important thing of exercises really comes down to one thing: just do something. You move your body. Like that's it. You don't need to do the super fancy CrossFit. You don't need to join the super fancy gym. At the minimum level of what exercise and fitness is all about is simply moving your body. So that would be my number one thing: is rather than make it complicated, just get up and start doing something.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to add that, there are people that might be extremists that, we're not sitting here talking about like, an elite athlete is trying to get that, last 2 millimeters of perfection. I mean, we're looking at just general fitness and to be a healthy individual, and just moving, I think, is incredibly important. And so I think reflecting and being aware of what your baseline is good to know. And I think that applies for several reasons. One is that you've got to allow your body to adapt to the activity. So this is really important in other realms too, in whether it's pacing, there's other name for people that are dealing with pain, but really you think about your body is trying to adapt to something new so that it has more fitness, it's capable of doing more. So starting low and going slow is a real, I think, a safe way, or just a gentle way of not overly alarming your system where you start hating it. It's the worst thing to do is just put yourself into overdrive, overload, and not realize that you're going to pay with potentially some really bad soreness a few days later that you can barely get up off the toilet or off the bed. And it kind of drives a negative connotation to this experience of exercise or fitness. So I think using the word movement is less painful to people's brains that don't normally engage in exercise of some sort. And sometimes just walking outside, if you have a safe environment to walk, just go walking is one of the things that can change your life in a lot of ways. Not only can you do it with somebody else, of course, during these COVID times, if they're part of your household, that's the best person to grab. or be well distanced or wearing a mask if there are people not, right in your household. But creating that time to move your body is not just about being fit to be able to do that activity on a consistent basis without too much challenge. It also activates a lot of things that can help you feel better. I mean, hormones that are affected, we can go into all that, but we don't need to. In general, most people feel better after they do something like that. It's kind of an overall well-being. You feel better. You have a little more energy. Now, if you do too much, too hard, too fast, you could pay a little bit of a price where you feel a little exhausted and your body's not used to it. Over time, it will get used to it. It's just that initial hit, sometimes it makes it hard on you. So just getting out and moving, consider movement your friend. And this is something most people won't talk about, but especially in the world of surgery and anesthesia, people don't recognize how much movement is tied to good bowel movements. And I know you're going to laugh. But if I don't exercise in a relatively frequent, or at least every other day usually a little bit every day is really what I need. And I can see a difference even from a gastrointestinal standpoint. So the thing that people are surprised, and I'm always surprised that people don't recognize this, but there's a primordial nervous system, an inherent nervous system within the gut itself, and it communicates with the overall nervous system. And so they're always kind of talking to each other in ways that, in the morning you drink a little bit of water or something and it hits the stomach and it activates this reflex that makes you within an hour usually want to go to the bathroom. So anyway, the point is this is all connected. We're all one system. So just getting out and moving just for fitness, it's not just about your overall, physical health. There's a mental health component, there's a GI health component, and actually keeps things from getting stagnant in a lot of areas and tissues in the body. So sorry, I went on a tangent, but I think it's very relevant.
No, I didn't think you were going on a tangent at all. You actually were really focused on the exercise and movement thing. So
good.
It made a lot of sense.
Good.
But you ended on a really important note about this belief being like foundational, right? So as we talked in real life nutrition, you can make this stuff as simple as you possibly can, reduce until that you can't go any farther. I can't remember who said that, something about reduction is the greatest form of beauty. But for food, it's we talked about Michael Pollan's thing, eat food, not too much, mostly plants, right? And this idea that eating this mostly plants provides such benefit to your body, and it's easy to do. And a natural sort of multicolored diet will provide all the vitamins that you need. And the same thing with movement. Mm-hmm. Movement is a body that doesn't move is going to be dying in more sense of, and then, that sounds almost maybe a little bit histrionic in some way, but it's true. If you look at when we have people who have dementia or severe cognitive elements where they can't move, or maybe they have brain death, what do they do when they move? The tissues die from pressures, the pressure of actually the body itself, because the body doesn't like to be in one place because it obstructs blood flow. And the other thing is you get atrophy, where the muscles themselves start to atrophy. And as those muscles atrophy, it actually affects your metabolism. It affects how you actually process glucose, insulin secretion, all the stuff that comes together for a healthy body and brain gets impacted. So when we're moving, and you also start on this with this idea between fitness and performance. Those are two very, very different things. If you're training for performance, that's going to be different than training for fitness, but you have to start with fitness first. Fitness provides the foundation for future performance gains. And the whole curve is different, right? You can do little teeny amounts to get lots of bang for your buck when it comes to fitness. Performance is the curve flattens and becomes much more difficult to get those performance gains. But if you're looking at just like baseline fitness, like I think the normal recommendation for cardiovascular health is 150 minutes a week, which is not much when you look at that. So if you are simply getting up, you set your phone, so every 2 hours or whatever, an alarm goes up, and you start walking around for 10 minutes, you're going to get that 10-minute walking pretty quickly every single day. You don't have to walk, up 16.5 hills. I think it's basically, you're just walking to the place, like moderate exercises, you can be able to hold a normal conversation. So you can have a back and forth with people. If you're at a point where you cannot vocalize, So you're now working out so much that you can actually speak to somebody else. Now you're pushing it a little bit more strenuous. And from a fitness standpoint, you may need less. There was an interesting thing about a recent study that just came out. Most people may know about high intensity interval training, which really sort of made the news because it was like, you can do, and they sold it as like this, you can only do like 10 minutes and that's all you need for whatever. Well, from a fitness standpoint, yes. If you're trying to lose for weight loss, it's probably not going to do it. There's a whole bunch more to it than that. But from a fitness standpoint, it's small amounts. And one of the original researchers wanted to know what was the least amount that you needed to do. And they came up with this interval of 4 seconds. Did you see this? It just came out this year.
I think I didn't read it in detail.
Okay. So it was literally 4 seconds. They had people go maximum output for 4 seconds and then rested for 56. So this is a minute. And then I think they did, I can't remember how many intervals. It was not very many, like not many at all, less than 10 minutes, I think, for the original study. And then what they started to do is after a month that they lowered the rest interval from 56 seconds down to like 30 seconds down to 26 seconds. So you're looking at 30-second intervals, 4 seconds maximum blast. And at the end, 26 seconds. And that's not a lot.
Right.
Yeah. And obviously they had a special flywheel kind of device to do really maximum expenditure, but you can do something similar by just altering your pace of how you walk. So if you are walking in your community and getting all the benefits, like you said, not only the fitness benefits, but the mental benefits, you can maybe speed up. Again, use this magical device called the phone, put a little timer on it, and then every 5 minutes, maybe it pings, and then for the next 30 seconds, you're just going to walk at a brisk pace. So you can really, really incorporate this stuff pretty easily. But I'm going to, I keep go back. The easiest thing to do is just have to do something and do it consistently.
Right. Right. There's several notes I was making while you were chatting about the pacing. First of all, I just want to address like various ways, this whole idea of just go. I'm not promoting Nike, but just do it, move.
Just move it.
It's very important that you have some consistency. And I think the problem with, starting out the year, I think people they overestimate what's really required to create a healthy, moving life. And so I think what happens is we self-sabotage and we end up feeling less than because we can't do as others. But it has nothing to do with, others might have some guidance and some, like I was a personal trainer up through medical school. I have my personal experience. I have seen various research at times or listened to other people that are very good in their field when it comes to fitness. And like you said, physicians are not well trained in many of the things that have to do with wellness. I hate to say it, but it's so true. We're so consumed with just knowing the things that are thrown at us, and most of it's not relevant to wellness, and we end up learning it the hard way or through other venues, or if it's just always been important to you. But and I've been at fault in the past of feeling good about really pushing myself and being intense and trying to be super fit. But that was also probably an outlet for me to deal with stress in life or feeling lonely in certain situations where it was my outlet. And so I would probably compensate in those areas in fitness. And there are plenty of people that do that in a lot of ways. It's not just through fitness, but working too much. But here's the point. And here the takeaway is that if you're going to try to elevate yourself, be aware of your baseline, know where you're at. If you're doing nothing, great, walk out the door and start walking. Just do that. If you're by yourself and you're bored and you can't enjoy nature or whatever it is, you put some music or in one of your ears so you can hear a car or something. But just be aware of where you're starting. And the way that you increase a little bit, if you want to just take it up a notch, is either increase the frequency, which if you've never done it, whatever you're doing, maybe try once every few days or once every other day and get to every day, or increase the duration or increase the speed at which you're maybe walking. If you're doing something with, when it comes to strengthening, if you wanted to maybe just pick something in your life that you keep having somebody else pick up something and work up to that level where you can carry your own bags or walk farther in the parking lot or take the stairs where you're at work, and try to insert these things throughout the day because you don't have to do your workout all like a whole hour workout. Give me an example. I do anywhere from a 10-minute workout to an hour workout. It all depends on my day, my mood, what other obligations I have. And what most people don't talk about is like for someone that has hair that has to worry about some makeup, like you try to time it to where things, I mean, you got to be practical. Like you're trying to figure out what works best, and you try to be intentional, be creative, find those times, insert something with a little extra effort. And if you want to take it up a notch, you've got to look at what is my frequency, my intensity, and be consistent. And the other thing I wanted to mention, that fitness is not just about, there's a little bit of strengthening and basic, balance with the swing of your legs as you're walking and whatnot, but there's a little more to it than just some of the aerobic benefits and a little bit of strengthening with that, or going up hills, making it a little bit harder. You need a certain amount of balance, a certain amount of strength, a certain amount of flexibility, and a certain amount of aerobic capacity. So in some way, you've got to elevate yourself a little bit beyond just sitting on a couch. So you got to do something that addresses all of those. And I know I look crazy, but sometimes I'm in the operating room for all day long, or I'm just brushing my teeth, or I'm doing something really kind of mindless at home. I'll start balancing on one leg, or I'll do a half squat or a quarter squat. It might warm me up too if I'm in a cold operating room. Like, get creative and don't think of it as like insignificant. I mean, I really truly believe, and also if you can look at some data out there, when you have that consistency and you make your body used to doing something, it can handle doing it in the future. But if you're not using it, you're going to lose it, because there's a certain point of, like you said, there's that minimum effort to actually take yourself to that next level. And so if you're not doing it at all, don't expect anything out of it. Just because you ran a marathon in your 20s doesn't mean you're going to do it in your 60s when you've done nothing. So your body's all about adaptability. And so recognize your life, be aware, be creative, adapt those things to incorporate whatever you need to work on, but make something you maybe enjoy a little bit more, whether it's getting out in nature, putting music on, doing it with somebody else. And there's a lot of reasons for that we could dive into, but many people that don't already have the habit of doing it by themselves, either they've burned themselves out trying something, and they really haven't explored multiple options, whether it's gently dancing to some music, like I do that at home sometimes as part of my workout. Whatever it is to inspire yourself and get yourself going, because once you get going, you're usually going to do a little bit, more. But I'm going on and on and not giving you a chance to talk, Kevin.
Well, there's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there. Unpack some of that if you'd like.
Unpack some of it. Well, we're hitting again many different things, but you hit on consistency and you talk about frequency and intensity and things like that. I do think that if you are just starting out, the thing to focus on is consistency. Mm-hmm. Meaning you don't want to blow yourself out the first day. Yeah. To help with that, because I am fitness is not natural for me. That's not any of my core identity, I would say, when I was growing up. Like, mm-hmm. I was a pretty sedentary kid. I was a big reader. I think that back then, I don't think we had this awareness of fitness as we do now. Like, it's not, I don't know, whatever it was like the jock thing, and I wasn't a jock. Right. Yeah. And so I started working out when I was a senior, and then I worked out really hard with my best friend, like bodybuilding kind of thing. It was a crazy intensity. It was great when I had a partner, and then I went to college and lost everything. Right. So I've always had these boom and bust cycles. Mm-hmm. And what I found worked best for me, if you are not someone who identifies with exercise, is two things. One is pre-planning the decisions. And I did that through a goal. So one of them was, and sometimes it actually came out with purpose. One of the ones I'm kind of thinking of is so when I was deployed, and one of my things when I was deployed in 2008 is I'm going to get in shape, because I was totally out of shape. I had nothing to do. My family was gone. I was in the middle of freaking the Horn of Africa. Mm-hmm. And, so I started, there you have there's nothing else to do. So you go to the gym, but I was doing it pretty much every other day. And I can't remember what I was following, but it was walking. And then I was doing this thing on a treadmill, trying to do like a HIIT thing, like run and then run. And I found that was pretty easy. But when I got home and I'm like, well, I'm really enjoying this treadmill and how to use a treadmill. I'm going to buy a treadmill, but I didn't want some cheapo one. So I got a gym grade treadmill from a place that was closing, and I couldn't justify the decision. It was like, I don't know, $2,500 or something. And I would just remember thinking that was one of the biggest purchases we had made outside of a car at that time. And I was like, oh my God, if I'm going to buy this thing, then the only way I can do it is I have to use it every day for 100 days. And that was the goal, right? And so once the decision was already made, all I had to do was follow through. And that sounds stupid, but the more you kind of see how the brain works and how decision-making gets impaired, particularly when you're under stress, if you don't have those pre-planned decisions and already something that is like, this is what I'm going to do. I just know I'm, at this time I'm going to do it or whatever, that significantly decreases the cognitive load and makes it much more likely that you're actually going to follow through. So I don't think I missed a day. Like if I had missed a day, it would have been not a big deal, as long as, the other rule is don't miss 2 days in a row. But making sure you have that plan, making sure you have a goal. And then the other thing that I still do is keeping these things as simple as possible. So if the decision is to incorporate a new workout, and I have to change frequently. I actually look at like a 4 to 6 week cycle, and then I'll do something, make a decision at the end of that. So I only have to do one decision, and then I decide what I'm going to do next for the next cycle. But if you're looking like a lot of different exercises, I'll do like I'm a big Beachbody fan. I think I talked about this with you. Like
I think
Sean T. I love Sean T. He's a good guy. Never met him before.
Like
he's my buddy though. And so do that. So then you said, I'm going to do this exercise program, and there's a wealth of them out there. And then you just do that, follow whatever their thing is. And there's ones that are, again, 10 minutes, and there's ones that are an hour. But that consistency is so important, so that you can then develop that habit of exercise. Like, I said I was booming and busting, and even, ran after I was deployed, and we did some half marathons. And then it was the weirdest cycle. My wife even noticed it, is I would exercise and would get to Thanksgiving, and then everything would fall apart until literally January.
Yeah. And
I can't remember exactly. It was somehow I became aware, like once I was aware of this pattern, then I somehow, I'm gonna have to look back because I do kind of chart this stuff down, but I kept things really simple. And I'm just like, okay, what I'm going to do is this, for this segment, I'm going to just make sure I don't know, I think it was like 1.5 miles every 3 days or whatever. And because I had that consistency, it has been, I want to say like 3 years that I don't think I've missed, unless we were traveling someplace. I don't think I've missed like 3 or 4 days in a row ever in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's because of that consistency. And if you've been doing it consistently enough, and I'm sure you get this, like, again, I don't identify myself as some fitness person. And I'm certainly, if you look at my bodily happiness, I'm not. But if I'm not exercising, like if I get antsy, like I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to exercise because it's now incorporated in the daily routine. But anyway, so that was a long way to say is that consistency is really, really key. And I think the older that we get, I remember used to telling patients this, it's more important to exercise more consistently and daily. Like if you're not pounding yourself in bodybuilding where you need like a profound rest day, you probably should be doing something for every day of every decade. So if you're 50, it's 5 days a week. If you're 40, it's 4 days a week. If you're 30, it's 3 days a week. If you're 70, you should be doing something pretty much every single day.
Some walking. Yeah.
Yeah. Something right there, because, we don't have time to go into this, but really the physical resiliency and how that starts eating down and your recovery times and things like that. But consistency, I just think consistency is absolutely crucial. And the way to really focus on consistency is have the preformed plan, like to know what you're going to do, make the decision once. So the next decision is all you have to do is just to start rather than to start and plan.
Yeah. I really like you bringing up, because sometimes I forget this, but there is a certain identity I have with being a fit person, because it's been with me since my teenage years. And so, but I do recognize that not everyone has the same kind of draw to it. I'd say that I'm a little bit less intense than I used to be, for sure. And throughout the pandemic, a little bit more lax about my intensity and food choices and whatnot. Not that I give up, just let everything go, but I still, I think that that's important to know, is kind of, where you stand, and any fears or anxieties that you might have about pursuing any kind of activity and what it means to you. Because even if you don't consider yourself a fit person, or a athlete, or whatever you want to say, I think there is a certain element of personal responsibility. If you want to be able to be that older person that has cognitive abilities, because that's certainly tied to our activity levels and what we eat and how we treat ourselves, even the company with we spend time with. Loneliness will probably be something we talk about in the future. I mean, that impacts multiple things together. But I think realizing that there is something you have to do for yourself, and like you said, keep it simple, consistent. And there was something else that the variety aspect. At some point, people kind of get on a plateau, or they lose interest, or just kind of depends what it is. But I like this idea, like you said, just to step back, actually, the simplicity aspect, where you don't have to think about it. Like you said, you can just, if you want someone to just tell you what to do, so you don't, turn yourself off to exercise, you just follow the lead of somebody else, a friend or someone on a computer or whatever, that can do it, for a lot of people. But for someone like me, I have a real strong need for variety. And so for me, it's not just a variety of type of activity, but our bodies inherently want variety of movement. So just sitting all day long, or standing all day long, or staying like this all day long, our bodies are not really, sometimes we might get a sensory experience that says, hey, this doesn't feel good, or this is paying attention that, okay, maybe move, start doing something different, or get off your rear end and start moving. Like you said, you can get signals that sometimes we misinterpret, or we try to cover it up with other things. But you got to listen to your body, and many times it is, like you said, if you miss exercise, you feel angsty or anxious. If we're lonely, we can feel angsty also if we aren't eating good food. I mean, it's funny how there's so many different sensations we have that could mean certain things. But I think from what we discussed, that there's this element of just starting, just move, be consistent, keep it simple. There's a phrase for that one, but I won't say that one. The KISS method.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
What's wrong about that? Oh.
Well, I just wasn't going to say, keep it simple, stupid, but you did. So there we go.
Or keep it super simple if you want to do the extra G rating. If you want to go beyond G to extra G.
Yeah. Or what I say to patients sometimes, keep it simple and safe. That's another one. But those,
that's more
those
medical. I like that one. That's more medically inclined.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
I think I made that up because I've never heard anyone use it, but anyway, you can use it too. So I think as general, the real life fitness is make it practical for your life and be creative. And if you have children, incorporate it into the lives with your children to spend more quality time with them and be a role model, because what you do is more important than necessarily what you say. So that's my personal opinion, of course.
I'm gonna highlight that one, because that's definitely true. Like, it is in our house, everyone exercises. We don't tell everybody to exercise. We have never ever been parents have said, you got to go do this, whatever. But both of our kids they exercise pretty much, if not every day, at least every other day for sure. And they do it the same way. They do it just like what you're saying, is they're very consistent. One of them uses more variety than the other. So it was much more variety driven, needs some change with that. One of them is very much more an automatic. So he has it set up where he has a routine that he does every day when he gets up. So that's what he does. But it's just kind of astounding to me, is because it's just modeling. Like, we literally is just modeling, because their mother exercises, I exercises. We're very open about exercises. They see us exercise. And so if you want to set an example, if you're a busy physician or whatever, and you're concerned about your kids and maybe sedentary activities with them, rather than say, oh, you need to do this, do it yourself so that they see it. like you're saying, and model your behavior. And I always get concerned if I haven't actually done a quick search on this stuff, but I would be pretty confident to bet that will have a greater effect on your children's activities, your behavior, than what you are telling them to do.
Yeah. Well, we know that in extreme versions of bad environments, that you could say that you love your children, and if you're hitting them, that like that's extreme.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we know that there's some issues there. But one example, the last thing I want to mention before we go, is that I want to give props to a family in our neighborhood that is remarkable. They literally walk at least 3 times a day, and now they have a dog, and the loop around this area is about, if you go in and out of different streets, it's about 2 miles. And they have 2 children, and they're teenagers. And of course, this is all personalities too, I'm sure, but this has been ingrained for the last 10 years, I think, with their family. But you'll either watch the couple walking together, and the dog will be inserted at any point for any of these. And then you'll see father and daughter going on a walk, or you'll see mother and son going for a walk, or I've seen both children go for a walk. They're not with any cell phones. It is literally a time of doing and having quality time with one another and getting your exercise in all at the same time. And so they're literally, at least the couple is at least getting about 6 miles of exercise a day, rain or shine. I'm not kidding. Like, they will be out there if it's raining too. It's just a commitment they have. And I am really even just watching dynamics of the family, I'm just utterly impressed by their commitment and their modeling for their children, and the level of communication that they have amongst each other. And I think it speaks volumes to setting aside, and it doesn't even have to take up most of your day. You set aside quality time, even if it's only 20-40 minutes, and you get to talk about all the things of the day, or be silent, whatever it is. And so anyway, I just have to give props out to that family that we've become friends with, and I'm in awe of their commitment.
That's super awesome. That's super awesome. I'd like to see the data on that. Or they say if you eat dinner with your family and your kids are less likely to do drugs. Well, if you're walking, 3 times with your family and built that habit, I would like to see what that's associated with. That's pretty awesome.
Even if you don't eat at the table and you're eating in your living room, but you're doing these walks together and you're talking, I don't know, it just bodes for good communication and connection. But any last thoughts?
Oh, I think, there's all sorts of stuff. Always there's stuff we can talk about this stuff. Because for foreshadowing, if we're concerned about dementia and cognitive decline, there's exercises associated with that, like prevent, again, with, particularly Alzheimer's, dementia being such a huge concern with the future. Walk. So protect your brain, because if you're trying to save all this money, getting physicians, and there's the FIRE movement, all this stuff, and they're working super hard, you're not taking care of yourself now. It's not going to do you any good, however much money you have at the end, if you are brain dead, heart dead, everything else dead, and stuck in a chair all day.
And avoid falls.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that was the other thing that you said, which I wanted to, again, kind of reiterate on that, is that's something, because I think that's something that people forget, is that balance training.
Mm-hmm.
That is huge. And I don't think walking, you're going to get some benefit for it, but I do like how you're challenging yourself. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to brush my teeth on one leg. I think that's a good way to do it, because my balance is not nearly as good as it was 20 years ago. I know that. But yeah, balance is a super big one. So I don't have a whole lot more to add to this particular discussion, other than say we may have future discussions on specific pieces of this. But you want me to take it out?
Sure.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, thank you for joining us to this day. We're talking about real life fitness to kind of fit the theme that was this month of January 2021, where we're talking about fitness resets, nutrition, and having some wonderful guests around that. Make sure, if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes or on YouTube. Well, although I think you have just to click the like button on YouTube. If you want to join the community and you're interested in participating in some of our events throughout the next year or so, you can go to thechangephysician.com. And until next time, stay well.